Welcome to Polo and Lifestyle Talks. My name is Scarlett Stilling. Today's guest is Marisa Peer. She is a world-renowned therapy trainer, celebrity therapist, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and creator of the I Am Enough movement. Such a pleasure to have you here at Polo and Lifestyle Talks, Marisa.
Thank you. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you started your career? How was your beginning?
Well, my father was a very amazing head teacher. He really understood the psychology of children. And that made me want to be, first of all, initially a teacher. Then I thought I would be a child psychologist. But when I began the training, I realized it wasn't for me. I think I was too young. It was very sad. And I ended up just going to Los Angeles to teach aerobics for Jane Fonda, which was much more fun.
Wow.
But I always had an interest in what makes humans tick, really, human behavior. And I was really fascinated and by how many women in Jane Fonda's workout studio were bulimic or anorexic or body dysmorphic. And I wanted to help them. I also happened to have two flatmates in West Hollywood. One was bulimic, one was anorexic. And I discovered hypnosis almost by chance. But I think a lot of things you discover by chance have your name written all over them. And then I became fascinated by hypnosis because I realized it was the only thing that had a lasting effect with eating disorders. As I began to work just with eating disorders, I was very lucky I could take all my clients straight out of Jane Fonda's workout studio in South Robertson Boulevard up the road from where I am now. But within a very short period of time, people would ring me and go, hey, I've got a fear of elevators or a fear of heights, and I really want to come to you because I saw what you did for my neighbor's daughter. And so I started to diversify, which was much more interesting, and began to work with everything. I worked on some television shows, I wrote some books, but now my business has almost come full circle because I got a new product called Dietless Life. And it's all about the psychology of overeating, how overeating is an emotional problem and really an act of regression. And you cannot diet yourself into high self-esteem or high self-confidence. I've almost gone back to where I started all those years ago. But I have a great life. I see clients. I teach RTT. I'm just going to Vancouver on Sunday to teach RTT there. We teach it all over the world. And I just feel like I've got the best job in the world.
I think it's such a privilege to have a job you're also passionate about.
Yeah, I think if you have a job where you can make a difference, where you have meaning and purpose and connection and significance and get to make a difference, and where you're growing all the time by helping other people grow, I don't think there's a better job where you can wake up and think, wow, someone somewhere is having a better life because of a skill I possess. And that's why I think we've trained 15,000 therapists all over the world who all say this is the best job in the world. In meeting all my clients' needs, I'm meeting all my own needs too.
Did you always want to become a therapist, or was there a moment you wanted to become something totally different?
I wanted to be like my dad had a belief that you should imagine everyone has a little tattoo on their forehead that says, please make me feel I matter, please make me feel significant. And I saw my dad making a difference every day of his life, but also I saw the immense joy he got from it. So I wanted to do something similar. And I think I believed initially that being a teacher would be the way. And it's so funny that I left teacher training college, but now I am a teacher. I've almost come full circle because I'm teaching people RTT. I'm teaching people how to raise their self-esteem. I'm teaching people how to feel enough. So exactly what my father wanted me to do and what I disappointed him by not doing, I've actually done, but in a very indirect way.
I saw that you have, I think, launched this year a new book.
Yes.
Tell Yourself a Better Lie. How came the idea to this book?
That's such a great question. Well, as a therapist, I think if you're a therapist and you are intrigued and fascinated by every client, which I've always been, I find every client fascinating. The people who taught me were amazing teachers, but of course, my best teachers are my clients. And I tell all the people I'm training, look, this is a great training, but you're going to have another teacher. Every client you see is going to teach you. And so what I saw with all of my clients is that their greatest pain actually came from the lies they told themselves. Sure, if your dad says, oh, you should have been a boy, you should have been a girl, you're a mistake, that will hurt you. If an ex says you're rubbish and you're boring, or your boss says something mean, it can hurt you. But we also have an ability to say, you know, my boss is having a bad day, my dad is unfulfilled, my ex is a bitter person. But it's the lies we tell ourselves, because our mind believes whatever we tell it must be true. That's why if you tell yourself you're embarrassed, you will blush. If you tell yourself you're sad, your eyes will fill with tears. If you tell yourself you're terrified because you're watching some horror movie, even though it's not real, your mind can't discern by what's real or imagined. So when we start to tell ourselves these lies, our mind's job is to make our thoughts real. Every day our mind is working to make our thoughts real. That's its job. And our job is to think better thoughts. And some of the lies are very simple. I'm an idiot. I can't remember everything. If I look at cake, I get fat. I'm not good with people. I'm no good with attention. But the saddest lie and the biggest lie is I'm not lovable. And I'm not enough. I'm not good enough, smart enough, interesting enough, worthy enough. And the sad thing is that no one comes onto the planet believing that. But once you buy into that lie, your words shape your reality. And if your lie and your words are, I'm not enough, I'm always going to get ghosted, nothing works out, I'm not smart enough, interesting enough, it becomes your reality. And if you're willing to lie to yourself, which we all do, we all wake up and go, oh my God, I look ancient. Oh, I look terrible. Everything's going to go wrong today. My kids are making me insane. My partner is driving me ballistic. You know, clearly that's not true. But if you're willing to tell yourself a lie, and tell yourself a better lie. You know, we make our beliefs and then our beliefs start to make us. And then we have something called confirmation bias, which means we're looking for proof of what we've already decided to be true. And if you make a different belief, your confirmation bias will start for looking for proof. And one of the easiest things is to go from I'm not enough to I'm enough. If I wake up every day and say, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not talented or skilled or qualified enough, I am making a belief. It's certainly making me, and I'm looking for proof of why that's true. But if I just take out the not and go, I am enough, I'm enough just because I'm enough, I don't have to quantify it. And I will start looking for proof of that. And that confirmation bias will go from negative to positive. You know, so a very simple thing. I can't lose weight becomes I have a fantastic metabolic rate. I forget everything. I have a phenomenal, dependable memory. I'm not lovable. I'm absolutely lovable. You might as well tell yourself a better lie, because your mind doesn't know, and it certainly doesn't care if what you tell it is true or false, useful or useless, helpful or hurtful. It will let it in. It's a bit like when you put lotion on. If I took this little balm now, it's just kind of, and I rub it on my hand, my skin's going to let it in. My skin's not going to go, is that Prada or is that some cheap stuff you got free on an airplane? That balm will nourish my skin wherever it came from. And words will nourish you from the inside out, but you got to make sure they're good words, not negative ones.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's very interesting how you explained that. That's really true. So for who would you say would be the book ideal for?
So Tell Yourself a Better Lie. I'm very proud of the book. I love the title because it makes people stop and think. And the byline is, you know, you can edit your story and upgrade your life. One of the saddest things I've seen in clients in my 30 plus years as a therapist is they make someone else's story their story. I should have been an accountant like my dad. I was supposed to be a girl. I was meant to be super sporty like my dad, and I'm not. And our big lesson is do not make someone else's story your story. I was supposed to be a teacher just like my dad, to carry on his I dream, but that was his story. It wasn't my story. And so many of us tell ourselves a story. Don't trust anyone. You never find a man if you're a successful woman. Nobody wants you when you're over 50. And these are stories. And so my biggest market is women between the age of 30 and 65. But a lot of men have written to me and said, wow, I read that book and I stopped drinking from reading that book. I stopped being angry just from reading that book, because it's not a book you read. It's a book that you absorb that begins to perform a form of therapy on you. But it's really for anyone who feels insecure. A lot of people have said, hey, I got my teenage son to read that. And who would have thought he'd even read it? But he said, Mum, this has helped me so much. So, because it's a book that explains all the principles of RTT. And it shows you, there's a chapter called RTT for me. And it shows you how you can do some of those techniques on your own. Of course, if you need therapy, see a therapist, but there are many therapeutic techniques that you can practice at home that are actually very simple, but just because they're simple, that doesn't mean that their effects aren't absolutely profound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have like an example, like one thing you could do at home?
Well, the book has 4 different audios. The book costs about $10, and each audio usually costs $35, but we put 4 downloads in there. One is how to install a cheerleader in yourself. One is about confidence. So what would I say? There's so many, I call them interruptions, so many different things you can do. But one of them is it's not me. We train therapists, and it's a formula where you take people back to certain scenes and you have them look at a situation. Here am I. My parents are poor and I have to go to the store and ask for out-of-date bread or cans. Here am I. I got to eat everything on my plate. My parents tell me I'll never find love. I'll never do well because we're not those kind of people. And I make my clients say, well, that's not me anymore, because that's not me because my dad would shout and scream at me and I couldn't fight back. That's not me because my mom was always at work and I felt she liked work better than me. Because as a child, we see things through the filter of a child. Mum is never here. She's at work. What does that mean? It means she loves work more than me. Dad is always shouting. What does that mean? It means he doesn't love me and I make him unhappy. But the adult can go, oh, let me take off the glasses, the filter of a child, and see my mother was working so much because she wanted to give me more than she had. My dad was frustrated because his life wasn't the way he wanted it to be. But that's not me. I can have a totally different life. If I look at my life, I never turned left on a plane and went to first class. We didn't even have central heating. I certainly didn't have an ensuite bathroom. But a lot of the things we have now, it's like saying, well, I didn't have Alexa as a child. I didn't have Bluetooth. I didn't have cable television. I didn't have a mobile phone. But that doesn't mean you haven't got them now. You go out and get them. And so just looking at certain scenes and seeing how you're replaying it and saying, but that isn't me anymore because... And when you justify yourself why that's not you, I could say when I was a kid, my father was this very eminent head teacher, an amazing guy, but he was very invested in other people's children. He was paid for that. He loved his job. He was at that school 7 days a week until 10 o'clock, and I did all his paperwork in his own time because he just wanted to help those kids. But I felt really sidelined and certainly inadequate and definitely not even second best, probably 10th best. And I had to keep saying, but that isn't me. My life is not living with a father who puts other children in front of me. That was my life, but my husband doesn't do that. My husband would never put anyone in front of me. So it's important to look at, I believe that we play the only part we've ever known until we make that part our own. I was just watching the movie Blonde about Marilyn Monroe last week, very sad. And you could see how she always played that part. Nobody wants me. You could look at someone like Amy Winehouse, who always played that part because her father left in her formative years. She always believed that she wasn't good enough and she would chase unsuitable men. And when you have the power to look at it and think, oh, I see, that caused that, but it doesn't have to be like that. You know, I've worked with billionaires who still switch off the heating, switch off the light, go, that's too expensive, because they're living in the past, and we have a script and we tend to adhere to that script, even though it's way out of date. But it's never too late to come along and take another script.
Yeah, exactly. Very well said. What are your top 5 tips for affirmation and to achieve your goal?
Do you know, one of the things I see with clients every day is that their pain is down to the emptiness inside of them. So many of my clients are addicts. They're often drug addicts or alcoholics. They're often food addicts. Sometimes they're shopaholics. Sometimes they're just addicted to screen time. And addiction is because of the emptiness inside of you. And the emptiness inside of you comes from your unmet needs. And when you're a child, when you're a baby, you don't really have many needs. Your need is to feel safe, significant, connected, and loved, to feel that you matter. It's only 5 needs. And when you get a bit older, you have a couple more. I need to be seen and heard and celebrated. So if we just look at 7 needs, which never go away, by the way, at a newborn and at 52, you still need to feel safe, connected, significant, loved, secure, to believe you matter, to be seen and heard, to be celebrated, to feel that someone is proud of you. And so my top tip would be go through those needs and meet them yourself. How do you do that? Well, every day you wake up and you say, I matter, I'm significant, I'm lovable just the way I am, I'm absolutely enough just the way I am, and I have a purpose in the world. And you may say, well, but that isn't true. But the point is, if you say I'm an idiot and I'll never find love, that isn't true either. But whatever you say, the strongest force in all human beings is that we act in a way that matches how we are defining ourselves. And you can change that definition. Your mind has no choice but to work on the words you give it, but you have tremendous choice to change the words. So my top tips would be wake up every day, look in the mirror, write it on the mirror, write it on your screensaver and say, I am enough, even if you don't believe it. I matter, I'm significant, I'm lovable, and I have a purpose in life. And you may want to change that bit and say, I'm proud of myself. I find love easily. I've got something to offer the world. But find 5 statements, repeat them over and over again. And it doesn't even matter if you don't believe them. And I know it works because we've now got about 1,500 schools all over the world, probably more, saying, hey, you know, we're doing this with the kids. 9-year-olds, 15-year-olds, they have to say this every morning. They've got a little plaque on their desk that they've made that says, I'm enough. And what's happened is extraordinary. Bullying has almost ceased to exist in this school. These kids are doing better academically, but even more, they're doing better emotionally. They're making friends. They're not bullying or being bullied because their sense of self has gone right up by these, I don't call them affirmations, I call them statements of truth, because they are indeed true for everybody. So that would be my 5 top tips. I call it the missing bit of you. What have you always wanted your mom or dad or teacher to say? It's all the same. You're smart, you're amazing, you're a great kid, you're great company. Being your parent or teacher is a joy. And we give all of that away. We're still looking for someone to turn up in our life and go, hey, you matter, you're amazing. And sometimes we give that to other people and they may fill that need. And often we give it away. I'm never going to find anyone. I just get lots of pets and be by myself. You don't need to give the need up, and you definitely don't need to give it. You need to meet it yourself. And what does that mean? It means just keep stating it. I'm safe in the world. I'm lovable, I matter, I belong, I'm here for a reason, I've got something to offer the world, I'm enough. Keep saying it, saying it, saying it, knowing that your mind won't question it, it will let it in. It learns by repetition. So that is probably my top tip. Walk through the world knowing that you do matter. You are enough, you are lovable, and you do have something to offer the world. And if you keep saying it, You surprise yourself at how quickly that becomes true. You know, somebody wrote to me and said, I started to do what you said. I lived in a very abusive marriage. And in just a matter of days, I took these steps that I couldn't take. I walked out of my home and went to the supervisor to get my husband out of the house. He's abusive. I went to the police and reported him. I went to my kids' school. And then I walked into a store and said, can I have a job? And they said, yes. And my whole life changed in one day because these thoughts I was thinking propelled me to take steps that I couldn't take before. I thought, I'm not going to let my children see me be hit. I'm not going to let them be hit. I'm going to change everything by believing I am worth more than this, and my kids are worth more. And I love that because thoughts always come first. When you're thinking a thought, well, I can't change this. I don't even deserve better. This is hopeless. You're trapped. And when you say, no, I deserve so much more, your brilliant mind compels you to take action because you're thinking better thoughts. So it's a bit like a ladder. You think a thought, you feel a feeling, and you act in a certain way, but the thought comes first. Here comes the thought, I'm not worthy of better. Here comes the feeling, I feel hopeless, helpless, trapped. Here comes the behavior, which is no action. I'm not doing anything. But in changing the thought, I deserve better, and so do my kids. I feel strong and empowered to do something, and then I take action because I've gone back to the thought, I deserve better, and I'm going to find better.
It's fascinating how these little things can change so much.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your career?
Well, I think one of the biggest lessons I learned in my career, because I created my own brand of therapy called RTT, Rapid Transformational Therapy. And until very recently, therapy was very much a man's world. Most therapists were men, most speakers were men. And here am I coming from nowhere with my own brand of therapy. And I was slightly overwhelmed when I worked on shows with doctors and psychiatrists. And what I learned was I should have opened my mouth and said, you know what, that's wrong. Somebody said to me recently, it was ridiculous that you believe that all problems stem from our childhood. I'm like, why is that ridiculous? That's true. The whole basis of psychology is based on our childhood. The whole basis of taking children into care is based on the fact that if you don't get a children out of a damaging home before they're 5, they may never recover from that, or they may not recover fully. So sometimes people say things like, well, people can't change. Somebody wrote to me and said, you shouldn't tell people they can change. It's like, really? Everyone changes. We're changing every day, every minute, and we have amazing powers to change. So I think what I learned, if I could go back and have my life again, I would have spoken up sooner. I would have had a voice. I would have not felt intimidated by these eminent doctors or physicians who thought they knew better. And in fact, a few years ago, I was asked to go and lecture at the Royal College of Physicians in London. And I was like, ooh, who am I to turn up and tell these eminent doctors how to work with clients? But I went. And when I walked in, I thought, oh, no, it's okay. Because some of them looked really out of shape. It's not to diminish them. And I realized that I could share something. And when I explained how I work with obesity, they all went, oh, my God, that's amazing. Because I was talking about the fact that when people are obese, they need a lot of support. You can't shame them and blame them. And food is their sense of comfort. So you can't take that away. But it took a lot of confidence, a lot of balls, if you like, to put your head above the parapet and say, just because you said that, it's like if you imagine what we were being told 20 years ago, low fat, that's the way to go. Don't eat fat. And as we took out the fat, we put in the sugar, and we got fatter people than ever because low fat makes you fat. You need fat to burn fat. And I think a lot of the things that we're told are not true. You know, my parents' generation thought doctors and policemen were gods and teachers. They never argued with them. And some of them are amazing and some of them aren't. And I think it takes a while to find your voice. But I wish I'd found that a little earlier. That would have been, I could have helped a lot more people.
Yeah, but at least you're doing it now, because it's never too
Exactly.
late, you know.
Never too late. Never, ever too late.
Are there any new exciting projects that you're currently working on?
Yes, Dietless Life is it starts next Thursday. It's a 12-week program where people come online and I hypnotize them every single week. We do a tutorial and explain that dieting doesn't work. The whole dieting industry is based on abuse and hating your body. So we have something entirely different that's really successful. So I did that in May for 3 months. It was amazing. I'm doing my second cohort next week, and we're also training people to be Dietless Life coaches. And the joy of my life is putting our 5-day challenge into schools, and we're working on that more. We've got it in about 700 schools in England and America, but we're now taking that into Spain and Europe. And so that's probably the joy of my life, helping children. I have another book that I'm writing. And so, yeah, it's all exciting. I don't think I'll ever retire. I'm so lucky because I do what I love, and I love what I do, and that's a great place to be.
Yeah, it really is. What is one motto you live by?
I would think my motto is I'm enough. I think it should be everybody's motto. I am enough. You see, when you're not enough, you need more food, more cake, more praise, more recognition. And when you know you're enough, it really helps you walk through the world without feeling somebody can diminish you. And of course, when you write books like I do and do YouTube lessons, they always want to go, I don't like you. I don't like what you have to, I don't like what you're wearing. But when you know you're enough, you don't let it in. And I'm a great believer that those 3 little words would change your life. After all, hoarding, binging, self-destructive, even procrastination, all of these things are nothing more than a fear of failure. I'm procrastinating in case it's not good enough. I'm sabotaging in case I'm not good enough. And so I believe that the belief that we're not enough is the common denominator of all our issues. So if we could accept that, even say most of our issues, if we could just go back and go, I'm enough, and say it, state it, affirm it, embody it every day, then most of our issues would get fixed. And that maybe sounds too simple, but the mind isn't complex. It is simple. So a bulimic would believe they weren't enough and they need more. An anorexic would believe they're not enough, they've got to change their shape. And we've been taught in the West that if you have a complex problem like depression, then the treatment must be long. And that just isn't true. Sometimes people find a complete resolution from their issues just by believing they're enough. You might notice I have these I'm enough bracelets. I wear them all the time. I have it written all over my house, on my mirror, on my fridge. I don't know if you can see in the background, my big mirror there has I'm enough on it. But it stops being what you say, and it becomes who you are. And it doesn't make you arrogant and go, yeah, I'm better than you, because when you're enough, you know that everyone's enough. And it's not for you to make other people believe, it's for you to know it. So my motto would be, go to imenough.com, join the I'm Enough movement. If you have children, certainly encourage them to say it, to state it. It really stops children both being a bully and being bullied. It helps people go through life without feeling inadequate. And it's very easy, but that's its power. Its power, it's in its strength, its simplicity, and most of all, its absolute honesty, because you are enough. You always have been, and you definitely always will be. If you want some of these I'm Enough bracelets completely free, go to imenough.com. If you'd like to find an RTT therapist, or indeed become one, it is the best job in the world. Go to rtt.com. You can train with me. No background in therapy is required. Or you can find someone who trained with me who's really good. And if you'd like some free audios on love blocks, money blocks, health blocks, success blocks, go to marisapeer.com. They're all there, and you can take as many as you like, and they're absolutely free. So marisapeer.com, rtt.com, imenough.com. And if you want to join Dietless Life, our new amazing successful product, go to Dartless Life information page on Facebook.
It was a wonderful conversation with you, Marisa.
You.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure talking to you and to hear your story and also your affirmation tips. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for inviting me. I've loved every minute.
I hope everyone enjoyed today's conversation. If so, give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, and I see you in our next video.